Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 198 of the Pika Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emerson, and joining me, we have my co host, Anomaly.
Hello.
And this week, we have, over the past couple of weeks, gotten new spec trees for both Windwalker, Mistweaver, and Brewmaster. The Brewmaster one actually just landed this weekend, or this week. So we're going to talk about, I think, the Mistweaver and Brewmaster ones.
Yep.
We're going to talk about some other alpha stuff. We're going to talk about being back in Faded Amirdrassil.
Yes.
Lovely.
And
yeah, just some other news.
We
But
got a new patch this week too, so we got to talk a little bit about that.
oh yeah, we're going to talk about how that broke guilds.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. How is being back in the tree raid?
It was good, except for we made a mistake, I'll say, in our guild of not realizing how much gear we did not have.
Oh no.
And we basically on Tuesday used the skip and went right to Smolderon.
Yeah.
Without clearing anything else. And our raid was sitting at like 515 item level because we hadn't done Mythic Plus for the week. A lot of people hadn't had their second bullion item. A lot of people hadn't thrown upgrades or done their second craft or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which it makes a huge difference when we killed original Smolderon and progression, we were only, I think, 2 or 3 item level off of cap.
Right.
And at 215, you're 10 essentially.
10 to 15. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an eye-opening experience to the point where we were having trouble healing off the absorbs, and people were just dying to a single flame wave. Even though you shouldn't get hit by flame waves anyway, it was essentially a one-shot mechanic in certain situations. So we spent probably about 8-9 wipes on it, so about an hour before realizing, hey, we should just clear the rest of the raid and then come back here on Thursday. So that's what we did. We cleared the rest of the raid, went back on Thursday at 522, I want to say ish, or 521, and basically two-shot it, and then two-shot, three-shot Tindral, and then killed Fireack again in a couple pulls. So
nice.
We ended up full clearing, but we made the slight mistake of not realizing how behind on gear we were.
That's really interesting to hear. So we also did the skip, but my first raid's on Friday. So when we hit Smolderon, we were eye level 519.
Okay.
Everybody basically had gotten their second bullion item from, this is actually, was going to be in the news section, but I was just going to bring it up here.
Yeah.
If you've not logged in and done the dungeon, do 4 dungeons weekly, you should do that. It gives you 2 antique bronze bullion, which is enough to buy an item. And unlike the other bullion that you can get, there's no catch up for this. So if you miss it, it's just missed. And that's not the end of the world, right? It's a for fun season kind of deal. But, if you do care about getting best in slot stuff in season 4, you should log in and do that. And any mythic dungeons count. You don't have to do mythic plus. So yeah.
You can just slam mythic zeros. Yeah, it's easy. Do Ruby life pools.
We had 6 wipes on Smolderon, and it was just orbs, pretty much. It was just people making mistakes with orbs. A little bit of weak aura issues, nothing too crazy. When we killed it, we actually had almost everybody die in the transition to the last one because we had 8 orbs go in.
Nice.
And it was just that the boss was at 2% going into the final bit, so we just killed it.
Nice. That's awesome. It was night and day with those upgrades. It was wild, just the way the fight felt after we basically shoved the upgrades and did a full clear. So
that of course was followed by Tindral, which we did not kill, but we got pretty close to. We put 15 pulls into it, which is more than it should take, and it's just fundamentally it's fire beams. That's just the number one issue by a million miles.
Gotcha.
And people just have to dodge fire beams, and if they don't, then we can't 19 man this boss right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I will say Tindral felt much more like for us like a not a like a reprogression, not a reprogression kill, but like a farm kill,
Yeah.
right? Like phase two seems super short for whatever reason.
Are you lusting
And
phase two?
yeah, we still lost the shield in phase two. Like
Okay.
basically it's the shield, so it's not. It's just the start of phase two, and yeah. So I mean, it's weird. It just feels super short. But yeah, I think we had 7 wipes on it, and 2 really deep ones like P3 wipes, but
Yeah.
everything else was like a P1.
We had a
Like
6% wipe, like 5 pulls in, right?
nice.
And then just like didn't get back there and kill it.
Yeah.
And it's really just like we need people to stay alive. There's some other stuff going on. A few extra wipes to people not collecting seeds,
Uh huh.
which is just like we didn't when we were progging it. We had people assigned their quadrants, and over time, kind of like that's drifted and shifted, and it was a small disaster last night. So or on Friday night, so we have new quadrants for people. Um,
Nice.
and then like too many people breaking out of roots instead of letting them get killed, which we had a pull that was clean. We get to the end of phase two, and the whole raid just dies to the last starfall, basically. Like,
Yeah.
just absolutely murdered. And we're like, okay, we need more healing cooldowns there, maybe. But it was our first time to that point. And then the next time it felt fine. And we are like, what's the difference? What happened? Like, there's some of it that's like, we have a preservation evoker ramp there that wasn't totally online the first time. So
Uh
there's
huh.
that. And there's also 7 treants the first time, and none the second time. And like a couple treants is pretty okay. It's not a big deal. 7 meant that they were like 25% of our damage taken in the 10 seconds before that starfall.
Yeah.
And that's during seeds. Like that's during the seed dot, which is a huge amount of damage. So for that to be 25% of all damage taken in that time
Yeah.
period is just nuts.
I think that point of Tindral is the highest damage point until you get there's another overlap in P3 that's like a root into Starfall type combo.
Yeah.
But yeah, that part is all yeah, we basically it's one of those positions where like our raid leaders like literally live. Like whatever you have
Yeah.
to press it now and like live. And don't break roots. The other
Yeah,
thing. So
so we moved aura mastery around. I did some looking and I was like half of the people in the top ranks are using like basically one aura mastery. They're using it at this spot where we are dying. I'm just going to move
mhm.
our aura mastery to this point and just give us, make us 12% more alive.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Prague's going. I mean, this week seems the easiest of all of them, other than our mishap day one. Really
No, Aberrus was we trash canned that raid.
interesting.
We had less wipes in Aberrus total than we had on Tindral this week. We actually
That's
were very close to having less wipes in Aberrus total than we had on Smolderon.
oh wow. Okay.
Like I think we were like sub 10 pulls on Sarkareth.
That's why that was not us at all. We had a very different Aberrus experience. I'll say. Uh,
So
yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like this one was just generally a little bit easier.
it
Uh,
is certainly more familiar, and I think
yeah.
we're suffering a little bit from people being used to the non-faded one, where we've gone in and like, you know, you do Tindral and you just lust phase one, and he just doesn't do any mechanics until phase three, basically. And then he
Exactly.
does like 2 mechanics and dies. It's very much the heroic Tindral experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget. Oh, dude, next week's gonna be so much fun doing mount runs. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I
and
got my
there's
mount this week, so I was excited.
very nice. There's
Yeah.
some fun stuff where like Smolder on this week tuning wise felt like Kurog felt phase or in week one,
Yeah, I can see that.
and we were not high level 520 in week one, so that boss is going to get smoked.
I'm excited for next week to go back to Vault because like we made really good progress in Vault, I'll say, in Mythic, and like I'm excited to see what we do to that. I mean, Diurna I think is still going to be interesting, and
Yeah,
Razagath, of course, is just like for lack of doing that fight in a while. But yeah,
yeah,
it'll be fun. So, um, well, cool. Well, we had a lot to talk about, so maybe we push a little bit forward. The one thing
yeah.
I did want to bring up is, and I just want to call out. someone. I read a tweet earlier today that basically someone was like, they should just have bullions all the time. This is stupid. Totally bring it back to season 4. And I just want to say that that's a dumb idea. Like I don't care. Like bullions are fine in season 4. Don't make me able to buy the specific piece of gear I want. Like after farming some currency in like lower ranked raids. It just I don't know. It upset
I
me.
I would love to see some hybrid of like bullion and bonus rolls.
Mm. I mean,
Where like
oh,
one
sorry.
of the things about bonus rolls is you could like target a boss to get a like try and get a specific item and usually miss, which
Hmm.
sucked. They usually miss like 99% of the time you didn't get what you wanted and that sucked. But like having something where like you can over time earn bullion to be able to go and like get an extra item from a specific boss that has like a trinket that you want. I
I
could,
don't. I'm old. I'm yelling from my front porch here. I
yeah.
don't. I don't like that
Now,
idea.
like the bullion cheating on like the upgrade track, where like you can go into normal and get a mythic Jarun. That I can see as like a let's not bring that to regular seasons, but you know,
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I don't know. We don't spend too much time here, but my only point is, it would. I agree with you. Maybe it'd be nice to be able to target it like bonus rolls, but I would say the way they do it now, maybe, is they just let you take one vault slot. Maybe it's the third vault slot, and you basically say, "I only want items from X boss in
yeah,
this slot."
yeah,
And so it functions kind of like bonus rolls did, but you have to still put in the work to unlock that third slot, and then
and
you can,
also you
yeah,
can you're
target.
guaranteed to get an item actually instead of like rolling gold all the time.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, maybe it could roll gold. Just troll everybody.
No, absolutely
So
not.
good.
Do not bring
So
that
good.
back. That only made sense back in like MOP where you could like farm bonus rolls and just spam those things.
Nice. Nice. Um, all right. Well, I was a small tangent. We got a lot to cover today, so let's get back on track. So,
Yep.
we had a couple of news items to quickly run through. We might not spend too much time here. But Blizzard has put out a bunch of new job postings for an unannounced game. It looks like these are pretty high level or high like senior positions on this game, looking at like narrative director, creative director, principal animators, things like that. So, yeah, it's interesting that they have another unannounced game in progress. After what the survival game
Got
got
canceled.
canceled.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize this, but apparently Overwatch 2 PvE mode also was canceled. That was in the Wowhead post about this. So yeah, it seems like they have another game potentially
Yeah.
coming up.
Overwatch 2 continuing to be a massive fuck up by Blizzard.
Dude, I didn't realize they still have an Overwatch 2 like league. So like I
Yeah.
got a random alert from like the Twitch app that was like Overwatch 2 league, like come join in and watch. I'm like, who plays that game?
Like so Overwatch is still genuinely like a fun shooter to play, a fun like group shooter to play with friends.
Yeah.
It's also like just a complete disaster. Like Overwatch 2, the breaking from like Overwatch to Overwatch 2 is just an unmitigated disaster. The shop is terrible, still terrible after they like reduced prices on like everything by a lot. It was a disaster. It was like the stated motivation was to like bring things like the PvE mode and the like reduce team size from 6 to 5, but like they could have reduced the team size from 6 to 5 on the old engine.
Yeah. And just
Yeah, the
put
real
other
reason
people
to
on
do
there.
it is so that they could replace the shop,
Yeah.
and the shop has been an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't loaded up or thought about Overwatch 2 in like years. It's like it seems like every time I'm like, when's the last time I played Overwatch 2? And like I look, it's literally been years. It's
Yeah,
always much longer than I remember.
yeah,
So,
like it's fun. I enjoy it. I don't really fire it up to play very often unless I'm playing with friends.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, and literally all my friends, if they're playing a shooter, it's like Valorant
yeah,
or uh like some sort of like survival type game.
yeah. A lot
So
of our like shooter time with friends now is like Deep Rock Galactic or Helldivers kind of games where it's more co-op
yeah.
versus PVE.
Yeah.
kind of deal.
Oh, Helldivers is good, man.
Mm.
Talk about another game that's getting messed up.
Well, at least Sony backed off
Yeah, well, we'll see how long that
for
lasts.
now. For now.
Yeah. Okay, we did get a patch this week, patch 10.2.7. We talked a little bit about it last week. It's a minor patch. There's additional story stuff to sort of set up the War Within coming up, and then a couple of minor tweaks, stable updates for Hunter and Hunter pet management, and then there's a new looking for group tool, which I was broken horribly when I logged in because I was excited. I was like, I'm gonna get on a little bit early. I have like an hour. I can get a key done before my raid. Not
Nope.
it just didn't work. It's just tons of errors. Turned
Yep.
off all my add-ons, still errors.
Turns out that the people writing it didn't consider the fact that you might have the mature language filter off.
Yep.
So it only functions if you have that on at this time.
Which I don't maybe I don't know why that would be a thing unless they're checking like the names of the groups
Yeah.
for like mature language filter, and that's like the mature language filter can't support that. I guess you're turning it on.
I'm gonna
though.
go with like the classic it's spaghetti, right?
Yeah.
Like game's 20 years old. It's spaghetti. That's my answer. My answer.
That makes sense.
Speaking of spaghetti, Siege of Orgrimmar in live, currently on a 1-day lockout for no apparent reason. So
dude, I love it. I got all 4 of the color variants for the Hunter mechanical pet, like the Scorpion mechanical pet.
Nice.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah. So you can go and like power farm your Tusk of Manoroth right now if you want.
Exactly.
And then they also finally fixed a bunch of the BFA raids to be soloable at the end of the now that they're almost 3 expansions old.
Yeah, they kind of did. They broke 2 of the fights. Gahoon
no.
and Nazoth, I believe it was Nazoth, were broken for a little bit, and now they've since they put another patch in late in the week. So now everything is soloable in BFA, it looks like.
Nice.
So yeah, and then there was a set of, I guess, so that's I think all in the 10.27 news. I will say just real quick, new LFG tool. I really like it.
Yeah,
it's super easy to like target. For me, like what I like to do is when I do Mythic Plus, like I want to get +10s in everything. Like I was just trying to get 10 done in everything. So it's easy for me to like basically look at every dungeon to start with and then slowly tick off. Like if I do a Bracken Hide, I no longer look for Bracken Hide 10 keys. And so that stuff's really nice. And I to be fair, I'm a little bit of a greedy person as a DPS, is I only look for keys that have a healer in them.
Yeah.
So as long as they have a healer in them, I'll try and join the queue. But if they don't, I'm not sitting there for 30 minutes waiting for a healer.
It is nice how it brought in some of the features from like there was a weak card that was going around that would like show like class colors on the entries and stuff like that. You can basically delete that now. There's also elements of pre-made group filter that are in there, but the filtering now happens on the server side if you use the built-in stuff, which means that you're not going to end up like you could if you set strict enough filters. Hit the search button and then have no results come up because they all got filtered out.
Yeah.
Because it was doing it client side after it retrieved it from the server. So this is a pretty nice quality of life improvement. Hopefully they let you turn off the mature language filter again soon.
Yeah. It was funny. Like in my raid and like guild chat or like raid chat, there's like just little squigglies now. Like when certain people, I'm just like, oh wow, you're being an idiot. So maybe I don't need to see that. Maybe I kind of like it on.
I just like never. I had reset my UI a few years ago. Like all my settings got reset and everything, and I just never turned it back off.
Nice. You
just like it's just not like I don't really need to actually like know whether you said one 4-letter word or another.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're functionally the same.
You get the gist of it. Yeah. So
and you get some fun things like Assassination Rogue getting censored half the time.
That's true, actually.
But yeah. The last thing from live this week, we did with the last reset get tuning. And there are some things that everybody expected, right? Vengeance Demon Hunter getting nerfed. Balance Druid's tier set bonus getting buffed.
Which is good.
And then they nerfed Brewmaster.
I saw that.
A little bit out of left field. I'm going to actually, so maybe a little bit controversial here. I am laying this at the feet of Equinox. And it's not entirely his fault, because it's also the fact that both Brackenhide Hollow and Algathar Academy are in the dungeon pool at the same time. And when you're good at Brewmaster, you can do so much padding on those dungeons. It is unreal the amount of damage you can put out on mobs that basically don't matter. Like all of the lashers in the tree area in Algathars,
Yeah.
and the lashers in Brackenhide, just like huge amounts of damage. And in Brackenhide, half of those things despawn, so you don't even actually have to do damage to them.
That is so funny.
But, you know, Brewmaster, it's something about like the damage scaling, right? It's something about the way that like our damage doesn't fall off hard enough at high target counts. And in particular, White Tiger Statue is a big culprit here, where it's effectively tuned for Windwalker, and we're not Windwalkers. So the nerfs are 10% nerf to Keg Smash, 10% nerf to Spinning Crane Kick, 30% nerf to Tiger Statue.
That's high. That's a lot.
And then they gave us a couple of buffs, and I have a note about this, so don't take it at face value. They increased our magic stagger rate from 45% to 55%, and then they buffed our healing spheres by 10%. Now,
Okay.
that's all great, except that they fucked it up, and the cat statue nerf is not in, the stagger buff is not in, so they just nerfed Keg Smash and Spinning Crane Kick and buffed healing spheres.
Oh, that's so funny.
So like honestly, the biggest part of the AoE nerf is not even in, and the biggest part of the survivability buff is also not in, because like the healing sphere buff like barely matters with how good Strength of Spirit is.
Fair enough.
You just overheal so much. It does mean that like your one orb expel harms are going to be better. But as soon as you have like 2 orbs, if you hit Strength of Spirit below 30% HP, you're just full health. It's a lay on hands.
We should bring Kate in here just to confirm that those buffs and nerfs are or not in. I read a little bit of Brewmaster chat and a little bit of contention of if they actually made the changes or not.
It's
I love Discord sometimes. I love it.
It's very frustrating. Which like genuinely, I would trade all of this AoE damage stuff. Like Keg Smash shouldn't have gotten nerfed. That one, we're already only pushing it to turn on other things in our single target rotation. So further nerfing it hurts that. I actually spent some time this weekend. We were doing a normal run to help somebody gear up an alt. And I experimented with a no Keg Smash rotation. Like no Keg Smash, no Breath of Fire, just push, other buttons. And there's no reason to do it. Like you actually are giving up more DPS talents than the Breath of Fire ones in order to skip Breath of Fire, because it's the most efficient pathing to reach them.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it wasn't the best, but it was actually shockingly good.
That's funny. That's awesome.
But I would have really liked that magic stagger buff. Really like that.
It seems like it's always been Brewmaster's little Achilles heel there. Is magic damage. Well, cool. Well, yeah, all that stuff. Well, some of it's live, some of it's not, but those are all the retail, we'll say changes. Well, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about alpha. And just maybe a couple of quick hits, and then we can talk about like the tree changes, right? So there was a new build this week, as always. The biggest news coming out of the build is really just that Shaman finally get a hero talent tree. So they have one.
I didn't know they had 0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor Shaman.
That's good. I mean, it is, it's good they got that. And then a couple or handful of changes, a bunch of Brewmaster stuff, which we'll probably talk when we talk about the trees went in. A handful of more Windwalker-ish, we'll say, changes. I think they got one new talent, but a little bit of changes their stuff. And nothing in terms of Mistweaver this week, I'll say. So Mistweaver is the same as it was last week on Alpha. So Another solid build, we'll say. I think we got a new battleground um implemented this week. So if you're that type of person, you can test it out. And then they're doing stuff with the warband achievements overall, which is I do not envy the person that has to mess with that data because that sounds
That
absolutely
sounds
horrid.
terrifying.
That sounds horrid. And cool. And then one other interesting change that I thought was funny was the flight master, the flight point speed. You can get an achievement to increase your flight point speed, your travel speed, between flight points, which I just find funny. I don't like why. Like
I mean,
I
on
don't
the
get
one
it.
hand, this is a funny to me replacement of the old style, like get this achievement and you unlock flying for the expansion,
Yeah.
like achievement. On the other hand, I do actually use the flight points in Dragonflight, where I'll like,
Really?
yeah, I'll just like get on the flight point and go AFK for 10 minutes and come back and I'll be there.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, like I don't do I use them often? No.
Yeah.
But you know, I use the flight point from Valdrakken to Ascara with some regularity, and
hmm
honestly, I don't think I've ever used any of the others, but I do use that one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't think I've ever used a flight point. Like not that okay, that's a little bit extreme.
The
But
Vault of
I
the Incarnates one, actually, you can take the flight path to Vault. I'm pretty sure.
I just I okay, I'll be honest with you, I wait to get summoned. Like I'll be
Well,
completely fair. I sit down for most things.
yeah.
Uh but yeah, I don't yeah, I never take flight points anywhere. Cause like it's wasted money. You're just throwing money away. Come on, just
Oh
fly.
no,
Just fly.
I've wasted more money this week than I've spent on it flight points for the entire past like 3 expansions because
God.
I bought a weapon enchant on my monk
Mm-hmm.
and then ended up having to buy a second one because I got my bullion weapon on my monk after. And those weapon
Oh.
enchants are like 5,000.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did the same thing, but with the belt enchant.
Yeah,
So
that
I
thing's more
did
expensive than
that.
the weapon enchant.
It's like, yeah, it's like 15, I think.
Yeah,
15K, at least on Mal'Ganis, 12 to 15, something like that. So yeah, no, it's whew, I guess that's a lot of money. I save my money. I fly everywhere or get summoned. One of the
yeah.
two.
I mean, it definitely. I use them occasionally. Not a common thing. You know, I'll take in the AFK flight path being a little bit faster. It doesn't really matter because I'm going AFK anyway. But
Yeah.
you know,
I just I just fly really high and like use
point
basically point myself in a direction and just like sort of
ghost.
angle it just right so I always coast. I don't lose enough speed and then yeah, I hope I hit the mark. Um the only time it messes up is actually funnily enough when heading to Brackenhide. In that like I always hit the mountains.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
pretty
always
hard
an issue.
to not hit the mountains and then also aim yourself correctly from Valdrakken to hit Brackenhide.
Yeah, that's a goal of
I'm
mine though.
actually now I want to try that. I want to try going so high from Valdrakken and then pointing down in the direction of Brackenhide and just fly directly into the dungeon entrance.
That'd be tough. I think you can do it though.
I think it's possible.
Yeah. Um, well, cool. Yeah. So a couple of just alpha changes there. And one other thing before we get again, last thing before we get into the talent trees is, um, there is a new glyph of jab, coming in the War Within.
So
Maybe
excited.
not new. I guess it's been around maybe for a little bit, but hasn't been implemented. So yeah, so now you get to wield your weapon when you jab. So if you actually can see your character in a fight, you will now see them hit with their weapon. So I don't know. I've never actually cared about this. I don't get the like people in like Discord will like or like on the forums will say like, hey, we should wield our weapons, but it's like it's a jab. You're punching someone. Like
Yeah, it's so it used to back in Mists of Pandaria when you use this, it would change depending on your weapon. It would be
hmm
a different name, different icon, and different visual based on your weapon. And that's one of the things that they spend a lot of time with working on monk animations. Like monk animations across the board are really good. They are
yeah,
the first class to get new animations in kind of the post what's the word? When they started working on the visual updates for WoW, right? Cataclysm
yeah,
happened. They're like, wait, some of this old stuff looks really bad in comparison to the newer stuff. Okay, monk updates, lots of new animations. then WAD was actually like race model up.
Yep.
So that was all, that was nice. And then like Brewmaster, like I came up playing Brewmaster in Legion with Blackout Strike rather than Blackout Kick, which did use your weapon. Like we have, the over the shoulder special animations for the Legion artifact, and it also had the animation with Blackout Strike, and so now you can get that animation with Blackout Strike back. I think that's probably the most important thing for like people playing Brewmaster that missed that from Legion, is now you can use your Legion artifact appearance with the Glyph of Jab, and that's going to give you that old animation back.
Nice. Yeah. So, if you care about those animations, you can get a glyph in the War Within, and it'll be super fun for you.
I'm getting that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm playing Monk. We'll see. Ooh, might be skipping that one. All right. Well, I think like we mentioned at the top of the episode, we're gonna sort of dive into a lot of the talent tree changes. I don't know if we have a bunch of time to go in depth on everything, but
Yeah.
we'll at least give you an overview on like the major differences, I'll say, and what the impacts of that are. So, I don't know. It might make sense. Maybe we start with Mistweaver and then do Brewmaster.
Which
And if we have time,
for the Wowhead talent calculator, it makes me pick which.
it doesn't matter. I don't believe.
Doesn't matter. All right,
My understanding
you're
is
a master of harmony. Anomaly.
excellent. Well, to take you through the major changes, at least we'll say in the first 8-point area, right? The starting area. Biggest changes you'll see is a total lack of essence font, which I'm excited about because
Hooray!
spell is gone. And so in general, that's going to be the biggest change. And so everything's sort of been reordered around the fact that essence font is not there. Skipping ahead slightly, what that does mean is there's no like font of life talent anymore. And so in general, that's sort of the largest change. We do get one new talent in this sort of grouping. It's Crane Style. It's the little Kiki looking icon, red Kiki looking icon.
Passions icon from.
Oh, is that what I didn't know what that was. And basically what this does is now allows your like Rising Sun Kick or Spinning Crane Kick, Rising Sun Kick 100% will heal 2 allies with a Gust of Mist, which is of course our mastery, and then it provides a chance for Spinning Crane Kick and Blackout Kick to also heal 1 ally within 40 yards with a Gust of Mist. Again, a mastery proc. So just some nice little kick weaving or fist weaving, whatever terminology you want to use for it. Some melee healing, some healing triggered off of your melee abilities, which is always nice. Other than that, everything else remains largely the same in terms of its function. There is a bit of a change in sort of the numbers, right? But in general, Thunder Focus T is still Thunder Focus T. Invigorating Mist on the right hand side is still Invigorating Mist. So it is what it is. Now, as we get to the middle here, this is where we see a larger number of changes, not in the sort of across the board, I'll say, in a couple different areas. So first up, like I mentioned, you'll see a lack of Font of Life. Again, that was the Essence Font talent that allowed you to reduce the cooldown on Thunder Focus T. No longer there. But the big one you'll see is actually Zen Pulse is a passive for Mistweaver here. So on the right-hand side, the little glowy orb, it's now a passive, and it triggers off of your Renewing Mist and Vivify interaction. Basically, it allows your Renewing Mist to have a chance to cause your next Vivify to also trigger Zen Pulse on its targets and all allies with Renewing Mist on them.
Wait,
so
that actually seems wild.
Yeah, it's basically like a nice little Zen Pulse trigger, a chance to trigger across every ally that has Renewing Mist on it. So sort of supporting the like spreading the Renewing Mist gameplay.
You don't even really like my initial read of this. I missed the all allies thing. So this you don't even really need to be thinking about like, oh, I need to watch for a Zen Pulse proc and then use my Vivify on the tank. You just like you spread your Renewing Mist, you have them active on the group, and then you just like Vivify, and sometimes the Vivify also triggers Zen Pulse on the tank, which generally in Mythic Plus is who you want to trigger it off of because they're in the middle of all the mobs.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a really good one. A really nice change. They also there's a new talent too, just off of that down to the left. It's called Deep Clarity, and basically that is after you fully consume Thunder Focus Tea, which we'll talk about. There's charges now, multiple charges. Thunder Focus Tea. You now will your next Vivify will trigger Zen Pulse. So there's a way to basically force a Zen Pulse proc utilizing Thunder Focus Tea, which I think is sort of very cool.
Nice.
And then staying within this section too, there is a new talent just below that one called She Harmony. This is our 2-piece from season 3 or season 4 of Dragonflight. So from that set bonus, it's essentially just we get in every time you apply Renewing Mist, Chi Harmony is also applied, and it's 50% increased healing taken for 8 seconds on that individual. So it's not as wild as it is now, but it is a nice little boost. The reason it's not as wild, of course, is as you sort of look across from left to right here in this row, which I believe this will be the same row in the current talent tree. Oh no, sorry, it's one above this. But you will not see Clouded Focus in the tree either. So that has been removed. Clouded Focus no longer there. It was actually just below like the mist wrapped refreshing mist node in the current tree. And so you just end up with Peer into Peace, which Peer into Peace was a new talent we got in season 4. And that stays there. It's just below the row that you're on, right in the middle. So down 1 and to the left. Oh yeah. So basically, this is the same talent we have today, but you'll notice in this same section, if you look at the current talent trees, all the connections are slightly different. Basically, Peer into Peace moves to where Clouded Focus / Ancient Teachings was, and Ancient Teachings moves to where Peer into, or what is it? Sorry, I always mess this one. Peer into Peace is. So that's sort of a slight change in where they are, but functionally all the same. You also notice in this same row is Focus Thunder, which is the additional charge, or the allowing Thunder Focus Tea to empower 2 of your next spells, is no longer a choice node because the choice node it had was with Upwelling, again, the Essence Font talent. So that's been removed. And then moving through the rest of these talents, really the bottom section remains largely unchanged. Other than, of course, Ancient Teachings being in a new position and having new connections, not connecting through Peer into Peace at all or any of the Miswrap talents. It's just sort of on its own off of Jade Firestomp. And then, of course, we get Dance of Chi-Ji as a new... I don't think we have that in our current tree, right? Oh, no, we still have it. Sorry, we have it in our current tree.
Wait,
but
you guys have Dance of Chi-Ji?
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah.
When does Brewmaster get Dance of Chi-Ji and Ancient Teachings, actually, for that matter?
Never. So sorry, we do have it today.
I say immediately after they nerf Brewmaster.
Yeah, after they nerf all your AoE, and like you're like, yeah, we probably need to nerf an AoE.
Well, they need to nerf Cat Statue.
Yeah,
which we don't have Cat Statue next expansion. That's another important piece of context for that nerf. They're nerfing an ability by 30%. It's going away when pre-patch hits.
Yeah, which I find hilarious. So I mean, largely what you can see is in the tree the removal of the Essence Font talents. Of Essence Font and the talents associated to it. And really the reorganization kind of starts in that lower section, middle to lower section of our tree, which is where you'll have the removal of Clouded Focus, which I think is super big. A lot of people don't like the current playstyle, which is essentially to sort of ramp up Renewing Mists out and then just pump a single target with healing and leveraging your Vivify sort of spread, cleave healing and stuff like that. So that's sort of gone now. And there's a couple of tweaks that don't really show up in the talent tree, such as with Thunder Focus Tea now. I think this is going to be the interaction, but it starts its cooldown immediately when you use it. So currently the way the functionality is, if you have a 2 charge of Thunder Focus Tea, you have to use both charges and then the 30-second cooldown starts. In the new way, it sort of functions more like a charge-based system where each charge can refresh independently. So that's a really good change there. And then Shaylin's Gift, largely the same. Those talents over there. There's not much change in that section of the tree. Really, our capstones, I think, are actually the exact same.
So one of the things that is really noteworthy to me about this tree, and we'll touch on it again when we talk about the Brewmaster tree in a minute. The way in which, like, the tree got a big refresh, right? There's a lot of changes to it, but those changes are mostly enabled by removing old complexities tied to an ability that was just unpopular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people, there are a few Essence Font diehards, but by and large, people didn't like Essence Font. They cut it. They cut the things that connected to it instead of trying to keep them around, and that allows them to bring forward other things that people do like, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
your tier set that's both very good and very popular.
Yep.
And bringing forth other newer things like focusing in more on Thunder Focus Tea, which, we'll see. I feel like there's this tendency for load bearing abilities to kind of like develop this negative
Yeah.
negative attachment. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see what the removal of clouded focus does, because I think that was an interesting new play style that sort of, came about. But I mean, with the nerf in, what was it, season 3,
yeah.
to the fact that, like, our renewing mists, like, the more you spread, it doesn't matter because it's sort of capped at 5 targets. So technically going to 6 or 7 renewing mist targets was less overall healing
Oh,
than trying to
ew.
stay around 5, because it's the square root scaling
Yeah.
factor of the spell.
So blanketing
Uh,
the whole raid and renewing mist is no longer the optimal thing to do.
no, not at all. So I mean, them curtailing that back is fine. But I mean, I think for me the biggest change is Essence Font. I mean, I've waited 8 years for them to remove that ability. Like, since August 30th of 2016 when Legion launched, I've wanted that ability gone. So I think it's nice that they've finally gone through and been able to pull it out of the class, and like you mentioned, like, it allows for a little bit more design space, I'll say. Makes sort of the ancient teachings bill, or not ancient teachings, but the is it yeah, it's ancient teachings, sorry. That build now focus a lot around Jade Fire Stomp and that sort of
Yeah.
in melee combat healer. And then essentially the bottom right hand focus more on being still probably in melee because it just makes sense as a monk, but like the ability to cast more while you're in melee,
Monk
and stuff like that.
like Holy Paladin, Mistweaver Monk like Holy Paladin gets counted as melee even if you're not playing it with the melee abilities. So that matters for like fight mechanics. Like, we were actually having this discussion about Tindral.
Hmm.
Melee healers don't get targeted for the dispel mechanic because
It's
they're
so
melee.
awesome. So
And
awesome.
so it is beneficial for, like, even though Holy Paladin is not really using stuff like Crusader Strike, is to my knowledge right now,
Hmm.
they still want to be up in melee on that fight because it just means you're out of you're not going to get like clipped by the dispel puddles or anything like that. You're going to be in a good position preemptively.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that was, I mean, that aspect of the class is always awesome, and the fact that they've cleaned that up a little bit too, because I mean, it's been a while, but like the whole Legion reworks were just so funny because Monk Mistweaver was still considered, like, they used to be like a hard melee and soft melee tags. So like certain abilities that would never target melee would never target Mistweaver, but could target Holy Paladins. And
Hmm.
so that was our one up on them for trying to steal our playstyle
Yeah,
when it was
and
ultimate
and
disc.
then and then what was oh man, now I'm blanking on the name of that stupid Azurite trait for Holy Paladins. Glimmer, and then Glimmer
Oh yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah,
Freaking that. But yeah, so I mean, ultimately, I mean, the other thing too is we look at this. There's going to be probably a couple write ups. I know June just did a write up on the hero talent tree for Master of Harmony. So she had a lot of good stuff going on there. Um, so yeah, so I mean, it's just I think, definitely take a read through that, because that hero talent tree it does provide the ability to go both in melee and more caster based. So, or shouldn't say more melee ability based and caster based. I hate the fact that people say there's a ranged Mistweaver. It frustrates me because ranged have so many more mechanics to dodge. Like, just sit in melee, it's easy. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's there's a couple more a couple or a lot more information out there, but I'll say the tree looks good with the removal of Essence Font. And I mean, I am personally sad to see Clouded Focus go, because I sort of liked that talent and like a lot of the skill expression that sat behind it.
yeah,
But I think in general it is a toxic, like, I hate to say this, but it's like, to me, it's, you playing that talent is like trying to play very early Legion disc, where like their ramps required a bunch of like literally cannot move, and there's like a 30-second window for them to like hit their max ramp. And if they hit it, they're gods. But if they miss it, it's
It's
not worth
terrible.
bringing a disc.
Yeah. Yeah.
At all. So yeah, no, it's I'm excited about the tree. So
Yeah. Brewmaster, there's been a lot of questions. Like, we obviously got the new class tree, and there's stuff that was in the class tree that we knew was hinting at the spec tree getting reworked. Because, for example, Clash was in the class tree, and the Clash node in the spec tree didn't do the thing where it gave you like 2 charges of Clash or whatever. It just didn't work. You could literally talent into it and get nothing.
nice.
So we knew that it was extremely likely we were going to be getting some spec tree changes, and we did. And we actually got some pretty substantial ones. I will say, before we started to this, we need some more, and fundamentally the reason that we need some more is just the points are insanely tight right now. You have to skip so much stuff at the bottom of the tree because there's just not enough points, and it's some degree like pathing. You have to spend extra points in the middle to be able to path into the stuff in the capstone kind of layer. Which then means you're not spending those points on capstones. However, we did get some really nice changes. By far, the most notable change is the removal of Bone Dust Brew. That whole section of the tree now has been replaced. I say whole. It was 2 talent nodes, been replaced by this little 3 nodes in the triangle formation. And I'm really excited about this one. It's called Ox Stance. People remember back in Mists, monks had stances that did not last very long. But this is a callback to that. But it actually is closer to Will of the Necropolis, which for those that like aren't up on their tank knowledge, Will of the Necropolis is one of the Blood Decay talents that is what allows them to function without getting one shot all the time. What Will of the Necropolis does is when you're going to take you're going to take damage below like 35% HP, it absorbs a percentage of that damage. And so it basically is like when you're low on health, it will help keep you from actually dying. And if a hit is really big, it will take the edge off of it, much like Stagger used to be before Stagger was like the main defensive thing for Brewmaster. So what Ox Stance does is when you cast Purifying Brew, you get a charge of Ox Stance. You get more charges if you purify higher Stagger. And when you take damage that is greater than 60% of your current health, everybody keeps missing this. I miss this. Current health, which means that when you're low on health, this is a lot more likely to trigger. A charge is consumed to increase the amount that you stagger. This is the kind of thing where we really need to do testing, and the talent is not 100% complete on alpha from what we can tell so far. But this is basically what this means is you push Purifying Brew, you get Ox Stance charges. Those Ox Stance charges mean that if something is like going to do a huge chunk of your HP, you stagger more of it. And it helps keep you from getting just like one shot, which is actually like a real problem for Brewmaster right now. It's very spiky. We are well past the days of BFA where you would just like push Ironskin Brew and never push anything else and just be a brick wall that was unkillable. Brewmaster health is a yo-yo at times right now, which can be fun because it gives you like Celestial Brew is super beefy, Expel Harm with Strength of Spirit is super beefy, but it also means that sometimes you just die. So one of the things I'm excited about our changes in this new class or in this new spec tree is we're getting some tools to help deal with that spikiness, and this is one of them. There's a couple of talents that are built off of this. Are branched off of this. One is Black Ox Adept, which causes Rising Sun Kick to also grant a charge of Ox Stance. One other theme through the updated Brewmaster Spec Tree is a lot more tie-ins with Rising Sun Kick, making Rising Sun Kick more of a first-class part of the Brewmaster kit instead of like an afterthought that happens to just be there because it's really good and also in the class tree. The other talent off of it causes Ox Stance to trigger when an attack is larger than 50% of your current health. And that's probably not something you see in a lot of higher end content, but it might be something that comes into play in like normal and heroic dungeons, normal raid and heroic dungeons, where stuff just doesn't hit as hard, so it's harder to consume your Ox Stance. So this might be like
Gotcha.
you take this point in lower level content.
Or like I guess farm too, right? I guess maybe you never get there in farm, but
Yeah, I mean, like, there's places that you definitely would not need this talent heightened senses in farm. Like thinking of like Sarkareth farm, you
yeah.
know, having it for his uh tank hit, it's always going to trigger it. 100% of the time in farm, that would trigger Ox Stance, no questions asked. Um, and that would have been extremely valuable to have. The heightened senses wouldn't really come into play, but it probably would have come into play on like um, what is it called? Forgotten Experiments, where it's a lot of
Uh-huh.
smaller damage. There's no big tank hit, and that would potentially help deal with the ticking damage, which is another classic Brewmaster weakness.
Gotcha.
I think the potential main issue with this right now is it's going to be a delicate balance between not having it triggered by like every auto attack and
Yeah.
also not running out of charges. Like if every auto attack is triggering it, then you run out of charges really quickly, and it does nothing most of the time.
And then random
Um,
like maybe not randomly, but only does something like every time you can trigger a charge essentially, right?
yeah. So like there's gonna be a delicate balancing act between like trying not to have it triggered off of every auto attack so that it's up for the big hits.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe I don't know, maybe moving it towards a more passive model where like it's just always on like Willow the Necropolis is, and maybe it's less powerful in each individual case, but that's okay because it's just always there. Something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah,
Yeah, but I mean I guess if it is triggered on every auto attack, then it becomes more of a game from a tank. I don't know if tanks like this. 'Cause I don't play tank, but like it's more of a game of saying like, all right, I need to save a rising sun kick for this point so that I can trigger
yeah.
a black or an ox stat or a charge of ox
And
stance
I
essentially.
think that could be cool, if not for the fact that Celestial Brew is also on the GCD and is just going to do that job better.
Gotcha. So well, okay. So then like what I guess if Celestial Blue covers the larger hits, what is like what would the point of this be just to have
It's
a additional level of coverage for like
for stuff that you
not the
can't
super
plan
big
for.
hits?
It's kind of
Okay,
like
that's fair.
my thinking on it is like it's stuff you can't plan for. It's a much more frequent thing. Like when you push select
Yeah.
Purifying Brew at heavy stagger, you get 3 charges, right?
Yeah.
So you push Purifying Brew. You can push Purifying Brew like every 8 seconds. This is a
Yeah.
pretty steady stream of charges that you're getting to help with this stuff. And it helps cover things that you can't just like you can't hit Celestia Brew every 3 times per 8 seconds. You just can't. And so it's going to help cover some things that are threatening without like being necessarily raw throughput.
Yeah.
Um, but there's still like a risk that if every auto attack is eating it, if you're it's just one of those things like it's either functionally passive because you generate enough charges that you just cap out on charges and you never have
Yeah.
to worry about it. And then you might as well just make it all the time and just not worry about the charge system at all.
Yep.
Or you can't and you effectively never have charges. It's like that queuing thing, right? Like a queue is always empty or full.
Right.
In the
Yeah.
long term, a queue is either empty or full. And if you take that and you spread it over a whole 8 minute fight, you either always have all of your Ox Stance charges or you never have Ox Stance charges.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a. It seems to me just like looking at it. It seems to me like if it's functionally the same as like Celestial Brew, then like you may. I maybe you treat it as more of like a minor cooldown. Like if you're not going to have just a passive
Yeah.
every charge for every hit, you treat it as more of like a minor cooldown, like that you can pair with something or just use on its own
Yeah.
for a random hit. So
Yeah.
um, cool.
Yeah. So there's some other changes in here. Bonus brew being removed the biggest one. We also have some restructuring up at the top of the tree. So the beginning parts of the tree, there's some stuff that got removed. The healing elixir gone. I can't even remember the name of the talent. The one that gives you movement speed when you dodge or are missed, also gone.
Okay. Nice.
Celestial Fortune now baked into the, like, it's just a passive that we get. You no longer have to tell into it, and so some of these things are freeing up space to give us other new talents, like, for example, the entirety of our season 2 tier set. So we have two different